cash considerations. My name is Justice Delos Santos, San Francisco Giants beat reporter for the Bay Area news group San Jose Mercury News, East Bay Times, whatever you want to call us, as long as you read, as long as you subscribe. And speaking of subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Apple, follow us on Spotify, rate us 5 stars if you do feel so inclined. A lot of things in this life cost a lot of money, but following, subscribing, rating 5 stars, all those things cost free $99 and just a moment of your time. And I'm now joined by someone who was also a top prospect at one point, turned superstar reporter. That's Shayna Rubin of the San Francisco Chronicle. Shayna, how we doing?
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
I don't know. I mean, hypothetically, we were reporting prospects at some point, theoretically.
Yeah, sure.
I think that makes sense.
That.
I thought about that. Listen, Shayna, I wasn't even. I'm gonna be at the ballpark. You're gonna be at the ballpark. I was not supposed to be at the ballpark today. I had a scheduled day off. Load management, whatever John Shea likes to say when I'm not at the ballpark.
Taking it.
But I'm gonna be there. And I woke up. I wasn't even gonna record a podcast episode this week. I was the tiredest boy. I don't know if you listened to the last one. I did that by myself for 30 minutes. It made me grateful for you and every guest I have. But we're here. Yeah. We're here, Shayna. I didn't think.
Honestly, I'm surprised that you didn't like talking to yourself for 30 minutes because that seems like something that you might enjoy doing.
Yeah, I sent this in the group chat, but you know that meme of the dude he has his hands for the people watching. You'll see the hands, and he's talking to a brick wall. That was me, and I did take a couple breaks, but it was still 30 minutes. I don't know how some podcasters do it, but anyway, we're not here to rehash what I was talking about a couple days ago because we are here to talk about the Giants breaking the emergency glass, pushing the big red button, whatever you want to call it. Bryce Eldridge is coming up, and Jesus Rodriguez is coming with him. We knew that this was going to happen at some point for both of these guys. It was always a question of when, not if, but that matter of when is on May the 7th. Amidst a pretty brutal losing streak.
It's the 4th.
May the 4th. See, Shayna, I don't even know my dates. I don't even know my dates. I do know these numbers to be true. It's amidst a 6-game losing streak. They've been the worst offense in baseball. Shayna, just your initial reactions on the Giants on May the 4th be with you to the Giants deciding to push the big red button.
I mean, it's one of those things where you talk to any Giants person in the days and weeks leading up to the season, the first month of the season when it was kind of touch and go for them, and they're saying they don't want to have to press the red button. They don't want to have Bryce Eldridge come up and be their savior. They don't want anyone to have to come up and be their savior. And right now that feels like what they're doing. That's not to say that Bryce Eldridge and Jesus Rodriguez are not performing well down there, not like they're undeserving of a call-up, not like it's out of nowhere for them specifically, but for the Giants in the context of losing 6 straight on the road in the fashion that they did, where the offense and the guys that they're paying all this money to just look like, they're floundering. It feels like it's a big red button push, and it feels like Bryce and Jesus come save us. And who knows what kind of not precedent, but who knows what that actually means for what they can actually do. Are these guys capable of saving them? Is that what they need to do? So that's my initial reaction.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the larger context of why they're being called up at this moment in time. But I think to just really emphasize the point, Shayna, I love my numbers. So I'm going to rattle off a couple numbers. I'm going to kind of rattle off a couple categories, and you just tell me whether this is good or bad.
Okay.
The Giants have their position players by Fangraphs WAR 0.6. That's the last in the majors. Is that good or bad?
Bad.
WRC Plus tied for last in the majors.
Oh, I think that's bad.
Fewest runs in the majors.
Whoa, that sounds really bad.
Fewest homers in the majors.
What? That's so bad. This is such an easy game.
Fewest steals in the majors.
Not surprised.
I'm a pivot here. 29th in OPS. So they're not last. 29th in OPS.
Who's last?
The Mets. who are also going through it right now.
There's a lot of teams going through it, man. Everyone's just having their turn
I
right
mean, I
now.
was just in Philadelphia with a team that was going through it so much so that they fired their manager. And I think the bigger red button would be. I'm not even going to entertain it. That's not happening. I'm not even going to say it. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. But this is I bring this all up to say like these points have been made a million times, and I don't have Rafi Devers and Willie Adamas' numbers in front of me, but their OPSs start with a 5. That's not good. And you kind of alluded to the timing element of all this. One of the things that the Giants had been pretty vocal about wanting to avoid was a scenario where it's this 21-year-old, and again, 24-year-old Jesus Rodriguez as well, but mainly Bryce, um, having all this pressure bestowed upon his shoulders. Like, I think it was two things. Like, one, you wanted to make sure he was as ready as possible, and two, you didn't want the weight of the world to be on his shoulders. And we're going to talk to Buster presumably today, or at some point. We're going to talk to Tony. We're going to talk to Bryce, and I think they're all going to say like, no, it's not the weight of the world on him, but it kind of is. And I think getting into the timing element, like I think that was the initial thing that really stuck out. Is like, yeah, it makes like X plus Y equals Z. Offense is struggling. Call up your top prospect to help the offense. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. But whether or not they want to say it directly or not, like this is a lot of pressure to put on Bryce. This is not a soft landing.
No. Yeah, it's not a soft landing. And it's also like when you're calling up a top prospect in history, does it ever start with something like this where you're calling him up to for a sort of to demand a spark as opposed to because like he's really forcing the issue and we think that he's just going to add to to something that we already got going on. It's less about Bryce, even though he's performing well, and more about their situation. And I don't, that's generally speaking, not even just from a pressure on him perspective. That's not what you want to do with a top prospect. And they didn't do that last year. Last year it was his debut was more about roster need, and he was swinging well. So I was like, sure, give him a look. But now it's just the circumstance is so unideal for a top prospect like that. And it's not to say that he can't handle pressure like that because he seems to have the type of personality that would embrace something like that. But, it goes beyond him. It goes beyond what he's mentally capable of. It goes beyond what he's physically capable of. It goes into where this team is at. And the it's exciting. Or I know people get excited about the top prospect getting called up, and it's like, oh, maybe we'll have something. We won't have to watch this dreadful baseball anymore. It'll be something worth watching. Um, but it's a sign of something far more concerning about where the state of the roster and the state of the team is. Um, and it's May, so it's hard not to look at this as a partial indictment on what they've built so far.
Yeah, and if you're a fan, like I completely understand. Like you've been watching like really bad baseball for I don't want to say the whole season because right before they lost, these two straight series on the road, like the offense wasn't great, but they did rattle off three straight series wins. And it was funny going back to the podcast that I recorded with Pavs just a week ago, I think, at this point, like just a week ago. I did float him the question, like, do you think we see Bryce in May? And he did kind of point to it's pretty ideal circumstances. It was ideal circumstances in the sense that, you were getting production out of the designated hitter spot because Casey Schmidt was playing really well. And the team was, it wasn't great, but they were playing well enough to where it wasn't like this pressing need. And now it has turned into this pressing need. And one of the questions that I'm kind of left with, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is, they wanted to, this is something that they have to nail. They cannot afford in this current window to mess up Bryce's development. So the question that I'm kind of left with is, were the 30 games in Sacramento like enough to like was that the cherry on top? Was that like enough to make sure he's like is he as fully baked as possible? Like was there nothing left or was there still development left to be had? And that's a question like frankly like we don't know. Like we'll kind of just have to wait and see, but I don't know. Like did you have that thought as well? Cuz I was kind of like 30 games like it's not a lot. Like and the strikeout issues are still there, the whiff issues are still there. It's not like he solved them. Like yeah, he was hitting well, but he
Yeah.
didn't just like snap his fingers and it was gone. Like and yeah, it's going to be a part of his game always. Like that's just his profile, but that was just something like I kind of was left wondering. It's like, were those 30 games like enough for him to be like this never go back down again prospect?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that when you have a prospect like Bryce Eldridge, you want it to be a decision where it's fully cooked. You know it's fully baked. You know, it's not only just fully baked where it's like we have this guy has to be in the big leagues right now. That's the ideal situation. That doesn't always happen, but you see across baseball, uh, that's usually when you can expect the best results. That's when you can expect them to fulfill their destiny or whatever. And the strikeout numbers in Triple-A, I mean, I think he has a pretty good walk rate right now, which is probably maybe just like a sign that he's, not chasing too much. He's sort of closing the gap a little bit, but and we know his game is going to come with a fair amount of strikeouts, but it's hard to tell now if that's going to translate to the big leagues in the way that it needs to. Uh, so that's TBD. I think that there it appears that there's a difference between how he was performing in spring training versus now. Because in spring training, after he got cut from opening day or didn't make opening day roster, he was pretty clear about like, look, I wasn't myself in spring. Like my coming back from the surgery I had on my wrist that really changed. Like I wasn't taking the swings that I wanted to take. My swing didn't. I wasn't feeling like myself. I was taking too big of a swing. So I think that it appears that he's has the swing that he's more comfortable taking. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how he actually is able to perform. There's a lot to I don't know. There's a lot of not mystery, but yeah, there's a lot of we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to Bryce and also the Giants, I did mention a lot of negative numbers. So let's mention some positive numbers. We're gonna play the same game. I'm gonna list the number. Just tell me whether it's good or bad.
Yay.
963 OPS in AAA.
Good stuff.
Hitting 405 in his last 10 games.
That's what you want.
So he's hot. I'm gonna get really granular here. WOBA, 93rd percentile in AAA.
That's great.
Ex WOBA, 97th percentile.
Whoa, the expected numbers are better.
Average exit velocity, 90th percentile exit velocity, max exit velo barrel rate, hard hit rate, launch angle, sweet spot, all of that stuff. Some of you are looking at me like I'm probably going to be like thinking like, what the hell is he talking about? It's all the red you want to see. It's like Playboy Cardi is a whole lot of red. And to the walk rate that you mentioned, it's 14.6%. It is up from about 9 point something percent last year. And I'm curious because he has been drawing more walks. He has been swinging less. But yeah, it's interesting from the perspective of like, he's also a streaky guy amidst a lineup of other streaky guys. And you don't have like a lot of metronomes on this team. So, the power is there. That's never been a question of power. But I kind of want to transition to like the fit here because, and I think Pavs may mention this on his show as well. It's like if you had to pick all of the guys like that have been starting regularly and say like, hey, we want one of these guys to get hot. Casey Schmidt might have been like the last guy you picked from a fit perspective
Mm-hmm.
because he's been starting the majority of the games at designated hitter.
Mm-hmm.
You have Rafi Devers at first base, which even amidst his extended struggles is going to continue playing. And so now you kind of have to figure out the Bryce element of it. And it seems like, I don't know what the lineup's going to look like today, but given that Devers has been struggling, Adames has been struggling, Matt Chapman hasn't had a hit in 4 games, I think we're going to see a lot. It's going to be a lot of shifting of the puzzle pieces, mixing and matching, as opposed to a very clear, you're playing here every day, or this is what the lineup is going to look like every day.
Yeah, I think Casey Schmidt being hot allows you to mix and match a little bit because he can play basically anywhere on the infield. So, and the guys on the infield are the ones that could use a little bit less weight on their feet, I guess. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of mixing and matching within the infield. We're using Casey Schmidt using that DH spot. It all depends on what roster moves they make. We still don't know who's getting sent down, but you can make your best guesses based on performance and who's been kind of hiding in the dugout all this time. Who knows? But Casey being the hottest hitter is it's not unexpected. it allows for some versatility in the way that they're going to mix and match and set the lineup on a daily basis. That hasn't been um, what they want and what they've been doing, which is just looks like the definition of insanity, which is rolling out the same couple guys, which of course you are. You're paying all these guys a bunch of money. You want those guys to well, this is a whole other conversation, I guess, but like you're setting up the lineup based on how you expected to be rolling out this team, and now this is not only a big call up, but it's in Eldridge and Rodriguez, but it's going to force them to stray from the we want to roll out the same guys every day mentality that seemed to be the philosophy of this front office. So it's going to force some changes, I would believe, at least in the next couple whatever weeks, months, who knows.
Yeah, as far as who might be option DFA'd, I personally wouldn't be shocked if Gerard is someone that's DFA'd. I think that they wanted to give him an opportunity, but it just kind of hasn't materialized. And one kind of thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't mention in the last podcast is it was during the Thursday doubleheader where I think he just forgot how many outs there were on a fly out. Like he caught it as if he was gearing up to throw, and it's like super granular in like the grand scheme of things. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if Will Brendan's sent down either. He just hasn't been playing a ton. Like I sometimes forget Will Brendan's on the team just because we don't see him play that often. I want to get to the Jesus Rodriguez piece of all this, but before that, I kind of want to circle back to the Rafi Devers part of this as well. Talk to Pavs about it. Didn't mention on the last podcast, which may be testament to how tired I was, that he talked for the first time in 3 weeks. He said he's not frustrated. He didn't appreciate how the media coverage of him has been pretty negative. You know the comments. You've read the comments. Still hasn't really turned it on. The OPS still starts with a 5. He's been one of the worst regulars in baseball, or depending on which metric you look at, might just be the worst regular in baseball. And we know what his track record is. We know what he can do, but I wanted to pose this question to you as well as Eldridge is coming up. Just what is your personal level of concern when it comes to a guy like this, especially when you consider some of the underlying stuff as well that just hasn't maybe looked great?
It's hard to know because I haven't watched. This is the first time I've watched Devers on a regular basis, and you have an expectation of what he's capable of, how he's the power he's supposed to provide. I mean, and it's we're at a point where it's not early anymore. So it's sort of we've officially transitioned from it's early. You have guys that don't start out great to start out the season, and now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, it's not early anymore. It's getting worse. So what does this tell us about who this player is? I mean, it's hard to be overly concerned given his history. Yes, it's been a long time, but I think historically starts out pretty slow. I don't know if I could say that. I don't know if I could say it was a straight face anymore, just because it's not early. But it's hard to be overly concerned about what he's capable of as a player in terms of the next 7-8 years, whatever he's under contract for. He has outlier hitting ability that isn't showing now, but we know exists. So it's hard to have any sort of definitive concerns when he has years of history where you see that, and then a couple of weeks and months where it's just gone completely out of the picture. So it's just more than anything, you got to be disappointed because there's just absolutely no hint of anything that he's capable or he's supposed to be capable of doing since he's been in San Francisco, except for maybe a couple weeks last year.
Yeah, I think it's all, for me personally, it's kind of gotten to a point where, I think the second game in Philly, he had like a single, a walk, a sacrifice fly, and it was like, whoa, like this might be something, just because the at bats haven't been great. And talked about this a lot in the last pod. I don't want to dedicate too much time, but I just didn't want to grab your thoughts on that as well as we're kind of parsing through the offense as a whole, because it would be kind of funny, not funny, I don't know if funny is the right word, but if Bryce comes up and then Eldridge kind of instantly turns a corner as well, because these are guys with, if you've had to pick and choose 2 guys on this team with 30 homer power, you're picking those 2, and it's no question about it. Getting into the Jesus Rodriguez piece of this, he is so fascinating to me as a player. And we've covered baseball long enough. Like every once in a while, a manager will refer to somebody as a baseball player. And we know what that means. They mean it in the sense of like, it's not just like there's some guys like they can hit well, they can't really do anything else well. They can't really
Mm,
run. Like when they say that, they mean like this is a complete guy. Like there's nothing that he can't do in the realm of baseball. And Jesus Rodriguez is a baseball player
mm.
by literal definition and the figurative definition.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff.
It's some powerful stuff. But I am curious just like how this is all gonna kind of fold into him with him because he can catch. He's also played second base. He's also played left field. And his hitting profile is very fascinating as well. Like he's kind of the opposite of Eldridge. He doesn't hit the ball like super hard at all,
Mm,
but he makes a ton of contact. He does not strike out. He draws a decent amount. He actually has drawn more walks than strikeouts. And I don't think Eric Haas is going to be optioned. He's actually been hitting pretty well. I think it does help to have a veteran backstop. I don't think they're going to option Patrick Bailey. I've seen people on Twitter being like they might option him, but like I don't think that's like that might be a bigger red button to me if they do that. But
oh
I'm just
yeah.
kind of fascinated to see like how Jesus like folds into the current operation and for no other reason than it just gives them a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things around the infield and outfield.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about versatility and what how Eldridge's presence changes the options in terms of who's how they set up the lineup. The same goes for Rodriguez. Like he can catch, he can they can put him in a couple places in the infield. It's it opens having him there from a defensive standpoint opens up a lot of options when it comes to mixing and matching. Um, and in terms of the hitting profile, it's not the complete opposite of Bryce Eldridge, but he achieves individually something, and not saying that he's going to save the numbers, obviously, but he achieves something that has been a problem for this team, which is they're just not walking. And a lot of that has to do with how pitchers are approaching them. They're getting attacked. There's no pitching around. There's no hesitancy from the opposing pitchers. It's kind of just like a dive and kill type of approach that we're looking at. So I'm not saying that having Jesus Rodriguez up there is going to solve all of their problems. All of a sudden, their walk rate is going to skyrocket, but he does sort of present a skill that has been severely lacking on this team, and that's not for nothing. So that's the dynamic that I think the front office is envisioning, and when they're thinking about giving him an opportunity, as well as the defensive versatility.
And I do kind of wonder like how funky might some of these lineups look like if the offense continues to struggle. Like, do we have a game where it's like we see Jesus Rodriguez at second and Casey Schmidt at short? Do we have a game where it's like we're gonna move Elliott to right field for the day? We're gonna put Rodriguez in left. Like, I don't know like if they go like that far, but like it does. He does provide interesting options from that perspective. And again, because I just love rattling off numbers, I'm gonna give you a couple more.
Yay.
He has a 98th percentile strikeout rate in Triple-A.
Whoa.
Like when it comes to like whiff rate, in zone contact, like again, it's kind of like the Playboy Cardi. It's a whole lot of red. So it is he is like quasi aligned with the Luis Arias in that regard. Obviously, nobody's a Luis Arias, but it is in the sense that like you're gonna get another guy that like knows how to put bat on the ball and can at least just provide like a little bit more versatility in the offense as far as like what this guy can do individually. And it's funny, like when I was thinking about like how he kind of folds into this operation, like the defensive versatility, like my brain kind of went to like it's a version of Blake Sable, but maybe a little more defensively versatile. But this is not to be a one-to-one comp, but that's just kind of where my mind went. One other thing I want to get into before we wrap up, get out of here, that I think is worth addressing is the bullpen. And I think we've overall generally been very positive about the bullpen. I think as of right now, they're still second in the majors in ERA, but the Giants just suffered 3 walk-off losses during this 6-game road trip. It was 3 instances where they tried to hold on to a 1-run lead and couldn't. Ryan Walker was at the center of 2 of those. Sundays against the Rays, like that was a little more like I don't like it seems harsh to say like I put the blame solely on Ryan Walker, but like that kind of felt like more of a traditional blown save. The one against Philly in game 1 of the doubleheader was a little like that was kind of weird with Patrick Bailey calling 20 sinkers, but the bullpen is definitely not in the same spot it was since the last time we talked. Just how do you see things with this bullpen right now, coming home after a road trip that they had, and like, do you think that we might see, Eric Miller get more save opportunities, other guys get more save opportunities? It kind of feels like the conversation we had in spring training, like all over again. That's kind of what it feels
Yeah.
like.
I mean, I Ryan Walker's never been declared the closer. I think he was sort of put in that role a little bit on this road trip, and not to say that he blew it, but it didn't go great. So I would imagine that looking for the right guy, Ferris wheel is still happening for them to close games, looking for the best role to have each of their guys in. And I mean, we're seeing exactly the concern that uh, existed when the season started, which is there's not a whole lot of high leverage experience in this bullpen. You're seeing the cracks open up for the guys that do have high leverage experience, and there isn't a lot of safety net under them. So I think that the fault of this road trip are not entirely to blame the bullpen. I think that overall you're looking at a series where, or two series where the offense just looked putrid, but you're seeing the cracks that existed open up a little bit. So maybe you see Eric Miller close a little bit. He's been pretty good. Maybe you see the Ferris wheel start to spin a little bit more in terms of who gets what role in what part of the game. That definitely seems like another area where the coaching staff and everyone's going to have to sort of refocus their attention and figure out who's best where.
I've been simmering on this question for the last couple days since the Phillies series, and this was before Sunday's game. And I think John Shea even mentioned this in his piece today or yesterday, whichever day it was. I'm mixing up my days. I don't even know what day it is. Do you think the Giants need to just outright name a closer and like just have like a definitive like this is our guy? Like we're not gonna do by committee and just put everybody in their roles. Like, do you think like that could help this bullpen, or do you think it maybe not matter?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It depends on how much that actually helps their entire group's mental state, because that would be the reason, right? You want to, if maybe I'm wrong, but the pro to doing something like that is that everyone has it sort of settles the dust for everybody, and there's no sort of uh uh cobweb, or everyone benefits from knowing where they're going to be in the game, and you ask any sort of reliever and they say, yeah, there's a benefit to knowing where when I'm going to pitch. But to the extent that it would help things, I think that's the extent of it. Is it would maybe settle everyone's mental a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know why else it would, or if it would actually have a major impact on how they're performing.
Yeah, I go back to I think I can't remember if we were talking to I can't remember which manager we were talking to about, but Tony is like mentioned all the time, like guys like knowing what they're doing when they get to the ballpark, and I think one of the reasons that last year's bullpen was successful, and even like the core four, like they kind of just all knew like when they were going to pitch. Like Tyler Rogers, if there's a lead late in the game and it's close, you got the eighth. Randy Rodriguez before he got elevated to the closer role, same thing. Like if we're winning, you're pitching the seventh. Camilo, you've got the ninth. Which side note in all this, I've been seeing again. I'm terminally online. I'm seeing a lot of people saying I miss Camilo. I'm like, this is just such a the toxicity of social media discourse. I saw what some of y'all were saying last year and all this, but I think that's something that I think is worth posing to Tony is like, do you think that's just worth at some point just like putting a stamp and saying like, hey, these are going to be the definitive roles, and we'll go from there. If we got to adjust, we got to adjust. But
I mean, that's the problem. I think that they know that they would need to adjust. So why name a closer? If you name Ryan Walker closer 2 weeks ago, and then you're looking at it now, it's like, okay, then what? Then you're going to adjust. So why bother?
that's true. And I think in talking about the bullpen, I think it just illustrates that, kind of to go like full circle on this, to bring it back to Bryce, bring it back to the decision to call him up. Even if Bryce comes up instantly and just starts raking, this isn't just like a one Bryce fits all type thing. Like there are some legitimate flaws on this team. Like the starting rotation like has had moments where they've been solid, but on the whole just hasn't been the type of excellence that you need. And given today, we're going to get, because of the decision to start Adrian Hauser in game 2 of the doubleheader, we're going to get a starter for today. Specifically, like the bullpen's kind of been whatever. The defense has actually been fine. I think defensive run saved like has them pretty high, but this isn't just a matter of the offense, it's a matter of the whole team. This team is
Mhm.
8 games under 500. They're last place in the NL West. And so it's not just the pressure to bring Bryce up for the offense, it's kind of the pressure of the totality of it all. And I think, again, to kind of pin a bow on this conversation, that's kind of where my mind gravitates. It's like, this is
Yeah.
a lot to put on a 21-year-old Bryce Eldridge. And it is funny. You've covered basketball. I was texting Joseph Dykes about this, and he was like, well, putting the weight of a 21 of his franchise on a 21-year-old shoulders is like pretty common in the NBA. And I'm like, oh, different sport.
Yeah.
Completely different.
It's, I mean, my first thought, as you were saying, my first thought about this specific moment is less to do with Bryce and more to do with what it means for this entire franchise. And not to say that this is like a pivotal moment, but it is sort of a reminder of like they put all of their eggs and their money, and everyone likes to complain about, and by everyone I mean Twitter. Okay, there's a lot of conversation of, oh, they're not putting enough money into, they should have gotten this starter and that closer, and they should have pour more money into this. And it's just like they're pouring a good amount of money into a core group of players, free agents, trade acquisitions, with the expectation. You know, you get Rafael Devers, there's so much begging, get a star player, get a star player. You get that star player and they don't perform. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a broad scope of what they're doing. And there's so much money, expectation, and investment overall into a core group of players that uh, aren't delivering. And you have years and hundreds of millions and of invested into this group that might not cut it, and then all of a sudden you're taking a broad step back and you're thinking, is this really the way that this team should be building their roster? Did they do it? Did they do it right? Not do did they do it right, but this is the philosophy that Buster Posey has, which is you sign a bunch of players that we think are going to be good, you put them out there every day, and then they're going to win. Well, maybe that's just poking a hole in the philosophy that is being instituted right now. So I think that it's potentially speaking to a much bigger problem that we have in terms of the direction of, I hate to be dramatic, the direction of the organization, but it does feel a little bit pivotal. It does feel like a moment where we are allowed to take a step back and wonder, um, in modern baseball, can you really build a contender with free agents? And I think that you look at the Dodgers and they're not just doing their star players are from outside organizations, but they're very you have a different caliber of star player that they've acquired, and uh, it's not necessarily the type of team building philosophy that's always going to apply to every single team if you don't get the right mix of free agents and trade acquisitions. And I think when you get Rafael Devers, you think, well, that's someone that's going to deliver. He's always been able to do that. But then you take a step back and look at what they're doing now, and you think, is this the right group of guys that you want to invest in? And they've already done it. So I have to wonder if there's a little bit of free agency or contract claustrophobia or roster claustrophobia, where it's like, oh my God, we're in this room, this is where we're at, we've committed, now what? And if it doesn't work and it gets worse, then it's just going to look even worse and be uglier. So, again, this is sort of a spiral from this point, but I think it's worth looking at it from where we're at now and saying, is this the point where the room starts to close in on them and they start to realize, oh, what have we committed to? Is this really our team for the next few years? Is this who everyone's going to come out to watch? Is this the team that can contend in this division? And right now, not at all. And it's only been it's May. Maybe things turn around. Maybe some of these players deliver close to what was expected. But that's my main takeaway from this moment, which is it's not about Bryce. It's about they have to suddenly rescue these players that were supposed to rescue them. So that's feels like where they're at.
You were cooking. You were cooking. I feel like you just like entered a different
Sorry.
plane for like 3 minutes.
Was it 3 minutes? Oh, I'm so
It
sorry.
wasn't 3 minutes. I'm being dramatic, but
Oh God.
yeah, I mean, it is a matter of roster construction. Like to the point that you mentioned, they invested the money. Now it is going to be like this is obviously a question not just with the Giants, but with every team that signs free agents. It's like, did you invest properly? And
Mhm.
this is just like completely different scenario or a completely different example. But like I went down like a Chris Bryant rabbit hole, super randomly. And I remember like after he played his half season with the Giants, like people were clamoring to resign him for good reason. And that contract hasn't worked out well. Like that's just the nature of doing business. And whether or not this was worth it, like let's have this conversation in 5 years. We don't know right now. But to your point, like yeah, they've spent the money. Now it does matter that the guys that they're not spending a whole ton of money in, because for those of you who don't know, Bryce is going to be making the league minimum. Same thing with Jesus Rodriguez. You got to hit on those guys too. You
Mhm.
got to hit on the guys that are not making a ton of money as well to supplement. And again, it kind of gets back to the whole thing we're saying of like, is this truly the right moment in time for Bryce Eldridge to be called up to the majors? Was the development that he had in his 30 games, was that enough? And again, I always hate to fall back on like time will tell, but like that we're not gonna know. We're truly just not gonna know until like everything plays out. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how everything goes. Kind of starting tonight. They have it's what 6:45. It's like some nighttime game against the
Today?
yeah some
Yeah.
some some nighttime game against the San Diego Padres. We're gonna see who the starter is gonna be. It's not gonna be Carson Wisenhunt because he started yesterday. Maybe we see Trevor McDonald, but aside from that, Shayna, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Uh, this is a cool moment in Giants lore. I don't know. I don't have any thoughts. I don't actually think that.
You emptied the
It's
tank.
yeah.
You emptied the tank. And I'm sure we will have a lot more thoughts once we see Bryce Eldridge hit the dirt. And I'm sure we will have a lot more thoughts based off how these next handful of games of the Bryce Eldridge era in San Francisco go. Justice Del Santos, Shayna Rubin, Splash Considerations. See y'all later.